Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this information session on our counseling psychology programs here at the University of Lethbridge. My name is Dr. David Slump. I am the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies and Research in Education here in the faculty. With me today is Hannah Thomas. Hannah is the recruitment officer for the university in the graduate studies area. Also with us is Courtney Markle. Courtney is our program advisor. So she guides you through program once you're in. Also, we have with us Anna Mamo. Anna also helps guide students through program, especially when they go on into their thesis and their capstone work. And then leading us for most of this session will be Susan Pollock, who is the program manager for our graduate programs here in the Faculty of Education. So before I turn the screen over to Susan, I'd like to just open with our land acknowledgement from the university. Oki, and welcome to the University of Lethbridge. Our university's Blackfoot name is Aniskum, meaning sacred buffalo stone. The university is located in traditional Blackfoot Confederacy territory. We honor the Blackfoot people and their traditional ways of knowing and caring for this land, as well as all Aboriginal peoples who have helped shape and continue to strengthen our university community. As the session goes on, you will have opportunity to ask questions. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens, and you're able to post questions in there. We won't address the questions until the presentation is over. So that'll take about 30 minutes. And then as you're posting the questions, Courtney's going to kind of collate them in, and so we'll kind of efficiently go through as many as we can in the last half hour. I think with that all said, I will turn the floor over to Susan.
Thanks so much, Dr. Slump. Hello, and thank you for attending our information session covering counseling psychology graduate programs in the Faculty of Education. We have lots of content to cover today, so we'll get right into things. First of all, I wanted to go through the topics that we'll be sharing. So in this information session, we're going to provide an overview of the graduate counseling programs we offer within the Faculty of Education. We will discuss the features of our programs to help you decide if they meet your needs. We will review the admission requirements in order that you can determine if you're ready to start your application. We'll examine the components that you need to include within your application. And finally, we'll look at potential career paths upon completion of our counseling programs. And as Dr. Slump mentioned, we'll wrap things up with a question and answer period. And please note that we'll hold all questions until the end of the session. So we often receive questions as to why counseling psychology programs are housed within a Faculty of Education. And the answer is that the field of counseling psychology grew out of vocational counseling and career counseling, and it is found in many faculties of education throughout a lot of Canada. Within the Faculty of Education at the U of L, we offer two distinct counseling programs. One is the Master of Education with a major in counseling psychology, and the other is the Master of Counseling program. And those are the programs we'll be speaking to today. So first, let's take a look at some of the features of our programs that are shared across both programs to help you decide if they're suitable for you. So first, a huge strength of our program is our cohort model. Students are admitted to a cohort and proceed according to the schedule with their peers, and you're completing your courses together at the same time. We found students in each cohort become a support network for each other, and this network lasts far beyond the timelines of the program. And in some cases, we've seen it last decades. So that's wonderful. Secondly, our programs are course-based. So the coursework is aligned with the needs of the field, and all work towards competencies required by professional bodies. And as well, courses are taught by qualified faculty with expertise in that area. A third feature that both programs share is that they offer a flexible location for practicum. So students arrange their practicum, providing you with a say in your training. The practicum can be completed from virtually anywhere pending approval of the supervisor and the agency. There is criteria related to that outlined within our counseling practicum handbook if people did want to take a look at at those requirements if you're curious. Students are well oriented before commencing a search for placement with the help of the program specialist and the practicum coordinator. And students receive lists of approved sites and supervisors to assist in your search. So you are supported throughout that process. It is worth noting that while it's not a requirement of our program, placements may require a vulnerable sector check or similar additional requirements beyond what's needed within the program. Practicum courses include both the placement at the agency and a seminar component. And the seminar component typically involves about 4 days of virtual meetings with your instructor and peers for each of the practicum courses. A fourth feature is that both the Master of Education Counseling Psychology and the Master of Counseling programs align with certification. Specifically, both programs meet requirements for Canadian Certified Counselor with the Canadian Counseling Psychotherapy Association, so that's CCC with the CCPA, and as well Alberta Registered Psychologist status with the College of Alberta Psychologists, so Registered Psychologist with CAP. As I'll mention later in this session, we're proud that both of our programs meet the approved programs pathway with the College of Alberta Psychologists. So we'll touch on more about certification and registration later in this program or in this session. So those are the features of both of the programs. So now taking a look at the individual programs, which suits my needs the best. First, let's talk about the Master of Education Counseling Psychology program. So the main distinguishing feature of this program is that the first year is offered on campus. The program is 2 years in duration, resulting in an intense program, and is designed for students who are fully immersed in their studies. The program consists of 3 components, as you can see from the schedule there. There's coursework, practicum placements, and a culminating activity. As you can see, the first year program is intensive with nine courses completed within that first year. As mentioned, courses are in person on campus and are normally offered during the day. It's not feasible to remain working due to the course load for this program. However, the practicum location is flexible, so the second year affords you the opportunity to complete your practicum in a location of your choosing, pending approval. So your second year of study does not need to be in Lethbridge. So just the first year of study for this program would be on campus in Lethbridge. This program is a little bit different in that we have culminating activity options within the MEd Counseling Psychology program, and that includes thesis, project, or capstone. So you do have 3 culminating activity options. Most students do opt for the capstone as it is the fastest pathway to program completion. However, if you intend to pursue a PhD, a thesis is recommended, and completing a project or thesis typically extends your program and it does add to the cost. So we just want folks to be aware of that. One thing that sets this program and the Master of Counseling program apart from the other University of Lethbridge graduate programs is that due to the course-based nature of our programs, we do not require applicants to identify a potential supervisor for thesis or project at the time of admission. So don't be surprised when you go into the application and you don't actually need to submit your intended supervisor at the time of application. Instead, an orientation to all of the culminating activity options is held upon starting your program. And this orientation will shed a lot of light on each of the options. And if you decide that you would like to pursue the project or thesis option, you would wait until your research course is completed before reaching out to faculty members to potentially act as your supervisor. So you have lots of time to decide which option is best for you. So those are the main features of the Master of Education Counseling Psychology program. Next, let's take a look at the Master of Counseling. So if you look at this schedule, you'll see that the Master of Counseling program is designed for working professionals. It's intended to help you navigate the challenges of balancing both a master's program and your career at the same time. So our blend of online coursework and face-to-face components makes this feasible. As you can see from the schedule, courses are spread out to allow you to continue working, and the program is completed in 3 years. Like the Master of Education program, the Master of Counseling program also consists of 3 components: coursework, a practicum placement, and a culminating activity. Relative to the coursework, your summer term consists of online work starting in May and wrapping up with an intensive summer institute on campus in Lethbridge for 2 weeks in July. Accommodation options are available on campus for students attending summer institute. And in the fall term, which is September to December, and the spring term, which is January to April, courses are completed online in an asynchronous manner. However, please note that you do proceed through the courses together with your peers in your cohort. So online components could include discussion forum participation, group work, individual assignments, and self-study. Those are just a few instances of what instructors may assign. And you are expected to be consistently engaging with your peers instructor throughout each week of the course. As mentioned in the program features, the practicum location is flexible and can be completed at a distance. Students should commit to approximately 2.5 to 3 days per week dedicated to their practicum placement. So while it is intended for working professionals, please know that in that last 8 months of your program, it is probably going to require you to take a leave of absence from work or to reduce your hours to accommodate the practicum placements. And wrapping up your program in the Master of Counseling is a culminating activity. And in this program, a professional portfolio is completed as your final culminating activity. And that involves a collection of reflective tasks and a comprehensive professional development plan. So now that I've gone so quickly through each of these, I'm just going to show you a program comparison so that you can see them side by side to make sure that you're clear on which is which. So comparing these programs side by side, a reminder that the MEd Counseling Psychology is on campus and is a 2-year program. And that program offers a thesis route for those intending to pursue a PhD. It's worth noting that the cost of this program is approximately $14,000 based on the 2022-2023 fee schedule. Please note that international students should refer to the fee schedule for details on the international rates. And looking at the Master of Counseling program, as mentioned, it's designed for working professionals. It's a blended delivery program completed over 3 years, and the cost of that program is approximately $22,500. And again, international students should refer to the fee schedule for details. So hopefully that has provided you with sufficient insights to help you determine which program is the best fit for you. We're going to turn things over and look now at the admission requirements. So it is worth noting that the counseling programs are very competitive. We do typically receive several hundred applications. So we do recommend that you submit your application once you're confident you have at least the minimum requirements met. And if you're in doubt relative to that, you can seek feedback from our office. So let's take a look at what the minimum requirements are for admission to our graduate programs. So first of all, you'll need to have completed a baccalaureate, so meaning a 4-year undergraduate degree. Successful applicants have come from a variety of backgrounds. So we often get asked, is this kind of degree suitable for entrance? So typically we see Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science with a major in psychology, Bachelor of Addictions Counseling, Bachelor of Social Work. We've even had Bachelor of Nursing and Bachelor of Management. And while a Bachelor of Education is acceptable background, it's not required. So sometimes people presume that the Master of Education does require a Bachelor of Education to get in, but that's not the case. It's just one of the suitable undergraduate degrees which would be appropriate for entry. Okay, so the baccalaureate degree is one of the admission requirements. The second that we'll look at is a minimum grade point average of 3.0. And this is calculated on the terms containing the last 20 courses, which have a grade other than pass-fail. So if you want to determine your GPA, simply start with your most recent term and count your courses backwards until you reach the term containing the 20th course. And be sure to include all courses completed within that term. So you may, in fact, end up with greater than 20 courses being utilized within the GPA calculation. Okay. Additionally, we do require 2 years of relevant experience, and we do often get asked what's suitable experience. And the best way that our counseling coordinator has described it is, he stated that the best kind of experience is that where you are helping to facilitate change in others, or where you are trying to help people with their emotions so that you can determine if you are comfortable dealing with those human emotions. Remember that it can be work or volunteer experience. Part-time experience does count and is simply prorated. So for instance, if you worked half-time for 4 years, you would have the equivalent of 2 years of full-time experience. Additionally, we do require a breadth of undergraduate courses in psychology. And in our admissions section, we do recommend specific courses. So this includes human development, learning, personality, psychological disorders, and counseling skills. So there's 5 different areas there that we recommend specific topics, but we are looking for a breadth of undergraduate psychology courses, which will assist you going into your master's program. And I would say in our experience that without having a minimum of 2 to 3 courses in psychology, it's really difficult to be successfully admitted. So please do keep that in mind, and make sure that you've really built up a repository of undergraduate psychology courses before you seek admission to the program. And if it's appropriate, English language proficiency would also be required. So once you've determined that you have met or exceeded all of these requirements noted on the slide, you can start to pull together the components required for your application. Okay, so please note that the application is completed entirely online, so there's no paperwork that needs to be submitted directly to our office. Once you have the following elements ready to upload to include within your application, the process really only takes a few minutes and is quite straightforward. So first of all, transcripts are required for every post-secondary institution you have attended. And that is even if you've just attended one course. So maybe many years ago, you took one online course through Athabasca University. You do still need to note that institution, you do need to note that within the listing, and you will need to upload the transcript for that institution. So at the time of application, only unofficial copies are required and must be uploaded. As I mentioned, be sure to note every single one of the institutions you've attended and to also upload transcripts for each. And please note that official transcripts will be required if you're admitted to programs. So you can certainly start the process of requesting your official transcripts, but they won't actually be reviewed unless you're admitted to program. Okay, so other than transcripts, you also require 3 referees. And so it's worth noting that you will simply enter the name and email address of the individuals who have agreed to act as a referee for you. Please be sure to ask your referees in this capacity, who are going to act in this capacity in advance. So you definitely want to give them some advance notice that you're going to be submitting their name within the system. And how it works is you don't request a letter from them. Instead, when you enter their information in the application, they will be sent an email and will enter their evaluation directly within our online system. Be sure to click the submit recommendation request button so that they receive the email asking them to complete the form. And once you've done that, once you've submitted the recommendation request, you can actually track the status of your references. So when you log into the CollegeNet application system, you can see the status, whether or not it's been submitted or started, and you can send a reminder to them from within the system. So please remember that referees need to submit by December 1st, so you want to provide them with plenty of notice. And we have heard from some psychology faculty members who say they receive as many as 50 requests for references. So, definitely give them plenty of time to address those requests. We do also receive many inquiries asking what's the best mix of referees to use. And according to the admission requirements, a minimum of 2 professional references should be used. However, all 3 can be professional references if, for instance, you've been out of school for a long time and it's difficult to obtain an academic reference. So again, a mix of academic and professional references. A minimum of 2 must be professional, but you can use all 3 as professional. Additionally, within the system, you will also need to upload a letter of intent, and this will clearly outline your interest in the program and your intended career outcome. Keep in mind that we have hundreds of applications to review, so please do keep it concise, and 1 to 2 pages for your letter of intent is sufficient. In addition, you will include your curriculum vitae or CV as part of your application. And sometimes people aren't sure what that is. And a CV is essentially just a resume that happens to list publications. And again, if required, you'll provide documentation of your English language proficiency test scores. So if you have all of those pieces in place, you're ready to submit your application. It is worth noting that you can commence your application and go back to finish it at a later time. So you can go back in several times, and it does save as you complete, as you go through the pages. Applications may be submitted up to and including December 1st. References are also due by December 1st. So again, we recommend giving at least a couple of weeks to provide sufficient time for the referees. Submitting your application earlier is better to make sure you can get everything in place and to allow us to follow up in case there are any questions. So I'm going to change topics a little bit now, and I'm going to talk a bit about the career pathways. So I just want to remind everyone that we offer 2 counseling programs. So we offer a Master of Education Counseling Psychology and a Master of Counseling program. And either of these programs lead to your chosen career route of either Canadian Certified Counselor or Registered Psychologist in the province of Alberta. So again, 2 programs. Once you're done those programs, they do lead into CCPA, Canadian Certified Counselor, or College of Alberta Psychologist, Registered Psychologist status. Okay, so the first career path that we're going to talk about is Canadian Certified Counselor. And or in the case of the provincial bodies, it's provincial, or it's professional counselor, or a typical other name could be a clinical counselor. So there are some provincial differences regarding the terminology, but as a whole, this is regulated through the Canadian Counselling and Psychotherapy Association, which is a national body certifying counselors. So again, there are also counselor certifying bodies in many of the provinces, which align with CCPA requirements. And one example of that is the BCACC, or British Columbia Association of Clinical Counselors. Please note that professional counselor is considered the minimum standard for the profession. And what's important to know is the CCPA only reviews your graduate coursework. So once you complete your graduate program, you're ready to apply with CCPA for the Canadian Certified Counselor designation. They're not going to look at any undergraduate coursework or anything like that. They're just looking at your graduate program. It meets the requirements and you're ready to go. Okay, and the second career path that our programs prepare you for is Alberta Registered Psychologist. So within the province of Alberta, this is with the College of Alberta Psychologists, or CAP. And CAP does look at your graduate coursework. However, there are also additional requirements. So the additional requirements include undergraduate courses in psychology. And again, remember, this is for the College of Alberta Psychologists and not for entrance to the program. So we just want to make those distinctions clear. So CAP is going to look at your graduate program, and they're going to look at your undergraduate psychology coursework. So regarding those undergraduate courses for the College of Alberta Psychologists, the title must include psychology, the instructor must have had a graduate degree in psychology, and the course must be intended to prepare students to engage in the practice of psychology. So for instance, courses and programs preparing you to be a child and youth counselor would not have psychology in the title, and they would have been intended to train you as a child and youth counselor, not as a psychologist. So those courses would not typically count relative to meeting the CAP criteria for evaluating academic credentials. So included within your undergraduate courses in psychology, there's also some substantive content areas that need to be covered. And these include the biological basis of behavior, cognitive affective bases of behavior, social bases of behavior, and psychology of the individual. Again, remember, this is not the same as entrance requirements for program. This is the requirements for College of Alberta Psychologists, registered psychologist status. So if you have the required undergraduate courses and have completed one of our graduate programs, then you're ready to apply for your provisional psychologist status with the College of Alberta Psychologists. And what happens is, following completion of your master's program, you would also require additional hours of supervised training as a provisional psychologist, and that's currently 1,600 hours. Note that your practicum in program does not count towards those hours, because you can't begin your provisionally supervised hours until after you have your Alberta provisional psychologist status, which can't happen until after you've completed your degree. So in addition to those 1,600 hours, you'll complete an ethics exam and an oral exam. And in Alberta, only once all of those elements have been approved by CAP are you a registered psychologist. So in other provinces, a PhD level degree is required to meet registered psychologist requirements, but in the province of Alberta, it's the graduate degree, the undergraduate coursework, supervised hours, the EPPPs, and an oral exam. So it is, as you can see, much more substantial in terms of preparing you to be a registered psychologist, as opposed to Canadian certified counselor. And that's why we say the Canadian certified counselor is the minimum to meet the requirements for the field. So both of our Master of Education Counseling Psychology and Master of Counseling programs are approved programs pathways with the College of Alberta Psychologists, meaning that you could have seamless entry into provisional psychologist status. So what that means is, after being admitted, so if you were successfully admitted to program, we would review your situation and determine if you've met all of the requirements for the approved programs pathway. So, i.e., do you have the required number of psychology courses at the undergraduate level and the substantive content areas covered? Keep in mind, the number that's required is far above what we require for admission to a program. But if you want to go through the fast track approved programs pathway, that would be required at the time of admission. So you don't have to worry if you have not met these additional requirements. It's not a problem. You would simply complete the necessary elements that are lacking and apply in the future directly to CAP. So in many instances, people complete their, maybe you only have 5 psychology courses at the undergraduate level. You simply complete your graduate program, go back, take your undergraduate psychology courses to meet the 12 courses required for CAP, and you would be ready to apply at that point in time. And alternatively, you may stick with the pathway of Canadian Certified Counselor with the Canadian Counselling and Psychotherapy Association and never actually pursue registered psychologist status. The choice is yours. But I would say that the vast majority of our students go on to registered psychologist status if they're remaining within the province of Alberta. So jumping back to the programs again for a moment, just wanted to show this slide again so everybody's clear on which program is which, and give you an opportunity to see some of the contacts and resources that we have available here for you. Please do feel free to send us an inquiry through our contact form. So if you've been reaching out to our office, hopefully you've been doing that through the contact form. And just wanted to thank you so much for listening to me today. I hope you found the session to be informative. And we will start the question and answer section of our session. So a reminder, I guess, that the Q&A session is going to be moderated. So to ask a question, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And the questions will be read aloud by a member of our team, and you will remain anonymous. So we won't be reading your name out. Please note that questions that are similar about the same topic area may be combined. So first question here is, can I apply to both programs? So the U of L does only allow individuals to apply to one program at a time. So you will have to think carefully about which program is best suited to your needs before you make the determination to apply. What kind of funding is available for students? So we do have two main components to funding for our students. The first is scholarships, and the majority of those come as entrance awards in the first year of students entering their program. And normally across our Faculty of Education graduate programs, we do distribute about $120,000 per year. So, you know, we do disperse that amongst programs. So that's across all the graduate programs, not just the counseling programs, but it is a sizable chunk for sure. Secondly, students can apply for a graduate assistantship, and that's where they would provide a faculty member with assistance in their research for several hours per week, and you would be paid for that work. So that's another avenue to garner some financial support. And please note that there's no funding if you're an international applicant. There's unfortunately no funding geared specifically for international students. You would just be considered within the spectrum of the other awards as well. So question here about, I'm an international student. I'm interested in applying to the Master of Counseling program. Will I get a study permit for the full 3 years? So it's important to note that for blended delivery programs, study permits are only granted for the on-campus portions. They're not granted for the blended delivery. So in the case of the Master of Counseling program, the visa would only grant you permission to attend the Summer Institute components in Canada. And we do always recommend seeking input from the International Centre if you have any questions related to visas or things like that for international students. So there's a question here about what kind of work or volunteer experience counts. Again, experience can be work or volunteer. It can be full-time or part-time. Again, if it's part-time, you simply prorate it in terms of counting up to 2 years. The admissions committee, again, as I mentioned with our counseling coordinator, they're looking for experience where facilitating change in others or trying to help people with their emotions. So you can really figure out if you're going to be comfortable or uncomfortable when someone's crying next to you. Is that something that, you know, is just a game changer for you and you're not comfortable with that? Or is that something that is suitable? So some examples would include teaching, coaching, working in a group home, assisting people with special needs, working at addiction centers. Those are just a small sampling of some of the examples of suitable work experience. And one really good place to get experience is crisis lines, so distress or crisis lines. And they do provide some really, really good training. And again, that's going to actually allow you to really suss out whether or not you're comfortable when people are under duress, like when they're really feeling hardship and upset, and you know, is that something that you're wanting to pursue a career in? So distress line can be great experience for that. Got a question about practicing in British Columbia or other locations. And does your program meet the needs of BCACC? So as we mentioned previously, BCACC is the BC Association of Clinical Counselors. And we do have many of our students who go into practice in BC as an RCC. So that's a registered certified counselor. Again, that's the professional body in BC that certifies counselors. So there in BC, you would be required to complete a group therapy course, and that's offered within our Master of Counseling program. So it is available to complete through the Master of Counseling, and it is open to students in the MEd Counseling Psychology program as well. And additionally, if you're going into BC, you would need a family systems therapy course, which our graduates have had no issues in completing outside of their graduate program. So keep in mind that our programs are designed to meet the needs specifically of the CCPA on a national basis and CAP within the province of Alberta. However, most programs across North America have more similarities and differences. You know, they've all got courses in ethics, interventions, assessment, research, etc. So typically speaking, the vast majority of provincial bodies are going to recognize the programs. There may be a course, for instance, like in the case of British Columbia, where you need to complete an additional course to meet their requirements. And it's important to know the requirements for the body with which you intend to certify or register. So the onus is really on the students to make sure that, and it is always an evolving situation as well. So, you know, the onus is on the students to make sure that they check the coursework that you're completing within the programs and map that out to the professional body that you intend to certify or register with. Please do keep in mind that we have an ethics course that you'll take in your first year of program, first or start of your second year, and it's going to delve in great detail into standards of professional conduct and codes of ethics. So you will be looking in great detail at you know, where you intend to practice. There's a question here from someone saying, I'm currently completing my BA Psych and will be done in April. Can I apply now? So absolutely, you can go ahead and complete your application. If you've met all the other admission requirements, such as the 2 years of experience, then you should apply. If you're offered admission, it would just be subject to the successful completion of your degree in April. Another question here about, I'm currently taking an undergraduate course in psychology. Will it count towards my admission requirements? So we can only take into account courses that have a grade, like that have on your transcript a grade as of the December 1st application deadline. So if you've submitted transcripts for a course in progress for the fall term, those courses are not going to get a check mark against them saying it's actually been completed. But keep in mind that that is the situation for all applicants, so it's fair across the board. But keep in mind that the more undergraduate courses in psychology you have, the better prepared you'll be for your graduate program. So they're definitely worthwhile. There's a question here about, do our programs meet the requirements for registration with the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario? Again, that would be something that it would be up to the student to actually confirm whether or not that's the case. But again, typically across Canada, there's more similarities than differences across the programs. And so we certainly would, you know, once you got into program, we would be going through that in great detail within your ethics course. So we've got another one. Does it mean without a course in psychology, you will not be considered? One of the minimum requirements is a breadth of psychology courses. If you don't have any psychology courses under your belt at this time, I highly recommend that you wait and apply once you do. Again, we have, you know, 200 applications per program from people who are qualified. And so if you don't meet the minimum requirements, we don't want you, you know, shelling out your money for an application that you're not going to be successful for. There's a question about, can my letter of intent be more than 500 words? Is it 1 to 2 pages, single space or double spaced? Honestly, we're not looking at that much detail. So whatever you need to concisely get your point across to us and it looks legible, we can read it. We're not worried about single space, double space, number of words, things like that. So so that's one that you know, you can make the determination on. There's a question about the 2 years of work experience and should it be completed before the program start date or must it be done before the application deadline? So ideally, you would have the 2 years done in advance. In some rare circumstances, you know, if you've got almost 2 years, then the committee may look at that and say that yes, you've got the minimum requirements met. It does say approximately 2 years. So in some cases, almost 2 years if you're very, very strong in the other areas of the application. There's a question about, would you consider someone who might not quite meet the GPA standard but already has a master's? And what we really are looking at is individuals who are, you know, have met the minimum standard. So unless there's some circumstances that surround that that GPA, you know, I'll maybe let Dr. Slomp speak to that a little more in depth. David, did you want to jump on and speak to that one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we take a somewhat of a holistic approach. I think, as Susan mentioned, there are certainly minimum standards. They're highly competitive programs, but if there are circumstances surrounding why a GPA might be slightly below, and I would say slightly below, is where we would need to be. You can certainly include that, I think, in your letter of intent. Tell a little bit about your journey and some of the things that may have impacted that, and certainly. That will be taken into consideration as well.
Thanks, David. There's a question here. Are you able to speak about the acceptance rate and mean GPA stats of successful applicants for previous years? As Dr. Swamp just alluded to, we really do look at a holistic approach. So someone with a lower GPA, but fantastic work experience, fantastic references, may gain entry into the program. So it's not, we don't look at just GPA and have a cutoff. So typically speaking, it is stronger than a 3.0, but there are cases where students with a low GPA around the 3.0 or 3.1 or 3.2 have successfully gained admission to program. The higher the GPA, the better your odds of getting in, just like strengthening any other components within your application though. There's a question here about, can a reference letter be written in French? No, unfortunately, it would need to be translated so that the admissions committee could read that. Good question here. Once applications have closed on December 1st, when do applicants expect to hear about decisions? So what will happen is we'll be doing the shortlisting after the application closes, and we will be doing interviews sometime in January, and it is typically in around early to middle February where people will be hearing. We do have technically until April 1st to inform all individuals, but it is, we'll do our best to do that faster. There's a question about summer accommodation and specifically the cost and living situation. I'll maybe just ask Courtney Merkel to grab that one, and she can actually send you the links that are needed. I don't know, unless Courtney, you happen to recall off the top of your head if you wanted to jump on and speak to Summer Institute. I don't recall personally what the amounts are.
We don't have updated costs for the 2023, but I believe off the top of my head, for a 1-bedroom, it was $600
Per week.
Per week, yes.
Okay. Okay. There's a question for the MC. Is there a need to be in Lethbridge other than the summer? So no, the practicum components are now at your placement, and we've moved the seminar components to virtual. So Summer Institute is the only time for the Master of Counseling that you would be on campus. There's a question about, what if the credits earned in the institution we studied in previously does not count in our bachelor's degree? Do we still need to include those? Yes, every single course that you have taken at a post-secondary institution needs to be noted. The institution needs to be noted within the educational background, and you need to upload a transcript for those, even if it's outside of a degree, even if it's just one course at a time. There's the question about the program's mission statement. I don't have that off the top of my head, but if you want to maybe grab that one, Courtney, that question, or the person who asked the question can send an email to Courtney, and we can send you that information. There's a question about getting transcripts, can take 10 to 20 business days. Can you hold a spot with unofficial? Again, you don't need official transcripts to apply. So you do need to upload. So you do need to have a copy, an electronic copy of every transcript for every institution you have attended at an unofficial level. So for instance, if you attended the University of Alberta, you would log on to Bear Tracks and you would get your unofficial transcripts and you would upload those. You can take if you have printed copies of your transcripts, you can take just take a photo with your phone and upload those. So it doesn't need to be anything fancy. It just needs to be uploaded unofficially so that we can actually start the review process. if you're admitted to program, the admission committee or the admissions office will certainly review your official transcripts, and you do have until the end of your first term to submit those. So your offer of acceptance would actually be conditional based upon receiving your official transcripts. Good question. Who are some of the professors teaching in the MC program, and what are some of their specialties? So we do have core faculty teaching across the programs. There is within the future student site, there is actually a supervisor drop-down list, and you can actually search in there by program. So I do recommend going in and taking a look at those individuals. There's a question, can you possibly be admitted into the program without all the course requirements, then complete the requirements before the summer start? Because we've got so many applications that are fully qualified, it's really, we don't offer probationary admission to the program. Again, when we're turning away 100 people who have met the qualifications, it just really isn't feasible for us to be taking in somebody with a GPA that's lower than the minimum requirements or doesn't meet the requirements for the breadth of undergraduate courses, things like that. Let's see what else we've got. So prior to applying to the program, are you able to advise us on how many undergrad courses we may be missing for CAP? Just so we know what kind of time course commitment we're getting into as a whole. And we really can't take that on. We just don't have the time to do that for 400 individuals who are applying to program. We will, however, one of the things that we do in our program specifically that others don't really do is once you're admitted to program, we will do a preliminary assessment to let you know what your situation is. So we will let you know, if there are some deficiencies that need to be met relative to registered psychologist status. If you've completed some graduate courses in a different Master of Counseling program at a different university, will they be considered towards the Master of Counseling at the University of Lethbridge? So that would be dealt with as per the calendar. So the calendar does have a maximum number of transfer credit courses. Again, because we have hundreds of individuals who are applying to our programs, we're looking for individuals who are, wanting to come and take the program with us. So, and we also can't approve you for fast track program under the approved programs pathway if you've taken courses at another institution, because those courses haven't been vetted by the College of Alberta Psychologists like ours have been. And so, we're unable to push you through the approved programs pathway. So it may be in your best interest just to apply to the program and intend to take all of the courses within our program so that you can go through the approved programs pathway. So there's a question about if I have a degree of Bachelor in Social Sciences from abroad and has an equivalency that would work as prerequisite for admission in MEd Counseling Psychology. So yes, if it's considered a baccalaureate degree, so a U of L or the equivalent of a University of Lethbridge 4-year degree, then it would be acceptable. There's a question about the transcripts again. You only need to upload unofficial transcripts. The official transcripts would be sent directly to the university, and we won't require official transcripts unless you're admitted to program, but you can certainly start the process. So when you submit your application, you are free to start the process to submit your official transcripts to our institution if you would like to do so. There's a question here about the PhD in Counseling Psychology program. And unfortunately, we just haven't been able, we don't have the resourcing at the moment to launch the PhD in Counseling Psychology. So it is, it is a program that's approved by government, but hasn't actually been launched within our programs yet. There's a question about graduate assistantships Can they be done solely online? Yes, many of our assistantships are actually done where the student is just joining the instructor or the faculty coordinator virtually. There's a question. Do you have seats available for Indigenous students? Absolutely. We're going to look at admissions as a whole, and we want to ensure that our programs are reflecting society. There's a question presumably about this Master of Counselling. So are there 3 summer intensives or just the first year? So in the, let me go back to this one. So within the Master of Counselling program, there's 3 summer institutes. Within the Master of Education program, there's only 1 summer session, and that's 3 weeks on campus. So in the Master of Education, the first summer, you're on campus for 3 weeks. In the Master of Counselling program, you're on campus for 2 weeks in July, and that happens 3 times. Okay, and I see a couple other questions, but they're mostly been answered already. Does the student help or does the faculty rather help student join a governing body? So just like this process, we do the same thing once you are admitted to program. We do an overview of registration or certification, what your options are. The onus is on the students to do it, but we certainly will guide you through the process, and we make sure that that you're clear on what your pathways are. But the onus is on the students to ensure that they understand because you will be practicing under the standards of professional conduct or the codes of ethics for whichever registering or certifying body. So the onus is on the students to completely understand what they're getting themselves into in terms of those professional standards or codes of ethics. And so, really it's up to the students to understand what pieces are required to register or certify later, but we absolutely will give you a hand in helping you in the process. Oh, good question. Out of a few hundred applications, how many spots are open? So each cohort is about 20 students. So we admit about 20 students per cohort. I'm gonna turn things over to Dr. Slump in case there were just in case he had some questions he was grabbing from the queue that he wanted to answer. I see we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'll let Courtney and David maybe speak to any other questions that they wanted to, if they saw them and were grabbing them from the queue, if you had any.
I think the ones I was grabbing, I was sort of answering directly in the ones that I knew I could. So I don't know, Courtney, were there any others that you had flagged that haven't been addressed yet?
Nope, I'm working through the ones in the Q&A as well over here on my side, but it seems like a lot of them are being answered by Susan. So I think we're doing a pretty good job here.
Okay, I see there are a couple, like there's unfortunately, folks, there's just far too many questions to get through them, all, but there's a couple about the letter of intent, 3 pages, double space, shorten it. Again, use your judgment. This is something that you need to make sure that you're being concise, get your point across. But again, if it takes 3 pages to get your point across, then that's sufficient. But please keep in mind, the committee has hundreds of applications to review. So, being verbose in a letter of intent is not necessarily going to help your application.
I think one thing I would say, some have asked about the letters of intent. I think one thing I would say is that, 2 things that we're looking for is, do you fit sort of what the program's trying to achieve, right? So these programs are really there to train people who are going to serve the field as registered psychologists or counselors? Is that the career path that you're looking for? I think it's important that you're able to sort of speak to that and speak to sort of the history of the work that you've done that sort of has led you into this area. So that's an important one for people who are wondering about. Someone was mentioned they were shortlisted before. What is the committee looking for? I think that's our good fit for program in terms of what it's trying to achieve, and in demonstrating that you've sort of built up sort of experience that helps you be confident that this is indeed where you want to go with your career and with your life.
There's a question here about, do U of L grads get priority? And no, it is open to all, to all applicants from across Canada. And we do get applications from all across Canada and even internationally. So, that hopefully answers that question. There's a question about our interviews done in person or online, and we have actually during COVID we switched to Zoom, and we actually do intend to continue with that. So the interviews will be done by Zoom. There's a question about, if we don't have breadth of psychology courses to gain entry into the master's program, can we take those courses separately from U of L? Absolutely. You don't need to take the courses from the University of Lethbridge. There's lots of institutions that offer courses that are suitable. If you're going to practice within the province of Alberta, then make sure that you're taking courses that also meet not just our requirements for admission, but that are going to meet the requirements for registered psychologist status later, if that's your intention. There's a question about what weeks in the summer do we typically run the Summer Institute. It's usually the last 2 weeks of July, but each year in about January, we would send out the schedule for that. There's a question about approximately how much time will it take our referee to complete the letters of evaluation, or how involved is it? It's probably 3 drop-down questions, and I think another 4 or 5 text boxes. So it's not, it's not really onerous. It probably takes less time than if they were writing a letter, because we're at least guiding them in the things that we're looking for. There's a question. This is a really good question. Can I send in my application while I'm still waiting for a reference letter? Should I wait? Absolutely, you can submit your application. So we can, once you submit your application, we can start reviewing it, and we can reach out if there's anything that we have questions about. And you still have the opportunity to to nudge your references, to send a reminder in CollegeNet. One thing that I will note, so if it's really coming down to the wire and you have an individual who has not yet started their reference yet, you can actually in the system go in and make a change to who you want to act as your referee, but that can only happen if the individual has not started the reference letter yet. So once they've started, then that's no longer a situation that you can resolve. But you can actually contact CollegeNet directly. So if you're really in a bind, you can contact CollegeNet directly and ask them to modify the referee. So that would just be in a last case resort if you found out that somebody was traveling and there was no way, for instance, for them to get back. They were going to be out of the country for the next month and had no way to complete. So that's one thing to think about. Well, we've reached 4 o'clock, so unless anybody has, maybe David or Courtney, you can just let me know if there's any others, last question or 2 that you felt like we should sum up. We can wrap it up with that.
I was just gonna say, I know we haven't gotten to a lot of the questions in here. There's a lot of questions, so please do reach out to edu.masters@uleth.ca to submit your question. You will be prompted to go complete a form, and that's really helpful for us if you can complete the form, so we can make sure we're responding to everyone yeah, I know I wish we could spend all day answering all these questions, but there's just too many really great questions from everyone. So thank you for everyone for joining us.
I was going to say there are a lot of questions just around admissions in terms of the psychology courses. And I think it's important to know that and one asked the question in terms of a holistic approach, how are these considered? So it's part of the evidence body that's looked at. The more that you have, the stronger the application is, but that's true in sort of every aspect of the application, that the more you're able to demonstrate in these different areas in terms of GPA, the types of courses that you've done, the kind of experience you have, the stronger the application is going to be, the more competitive it will be. But not everybody's going to be strong in every area, and not everyone's going to be strong in the same ways. So that's where the admissions committee has a tough job to do, weighing through a lot of highly qualified applications and a lot of highly qualified people. So that's, I think the challenge is put the best that you can forward. And
Great. Well, thanks everyone for attending today. We really appreciate it. It's a lot of listening to me talk, so I'll apologize for that. But hopefully you found the session worthwhile to attend. And it was recorded, and we will be posting this on the website. So if there was something that you kind of missed a little bit of information, then we'll get it posted in the next little bit and get that up on the website for you. Thanks everyone for attending.